Choosing a new CRM platform for your private equity fund could seem like a very daunting exercise, especially given the sheer amount of logos that are usually available on market maps like these. However, when you take a closer look at the vendors that are available, you'll quickly realize that there aren't actually that many options if you're looking for a tech-forward and cutting-edge platform. A good way to look at this market is to segment all of the vendors based on the underlying customer set they primarily serve. In this analysis, we break down the top 15 of the largest vendors in the private equity space or private market space into 4 underlying categories: private equity, venture growth, fundraising and investor relations, and lastly, generic industry CRMs. The generic industry bucket contains vendors like HubSpot, Salesforce, and Microsoft Dynamics 365. And although these are very large and successful companies, Salesforce in particular generated more than $30 billion of revenue in the last year, we find that in today's world, they're very ill-suited for the private equity industry, simply because they are too large and they cater to too many use cases. When buying a vendor like HubSpot, automatically out of the box, you'll get a variety of modules, which will include things like revenue management, revenue forecasting, invoicing, customer support, or ticketing system. And although these things are useful for the generic industry, they're simply not applicable in the context of private equity. In fact, the private equity fund doesn't really have revenues, or customers for that matter. They have deals, investors, and M&A advisors. For these reasons, we consider these players as not very well suited for the private equity industry. Now, you can still find them. They have a very large install base, but that is really largely driven by the fact that when some of the older private equity funds, particularly based in the US or in Boston, New York, implemented their tech stacks in the early 2000s, those were the leading players at that time because simply there were just no other vendors available. Moving on to the private equity bucket, DealCloud, Navatar, Backstop, and Dynamo are probably 4 of the largest vendors in this space. However, this chart can be a little bit misleading. In reality, if you look behind the hood of these vendors, Navatar and Altvia are actually both Salesforce reskins, meaning that when you purchase that platform, it's fundamentally a white-labeled Salesforce tech stack. The downside of going with these vendors is that they fundamentally do not control their own product roadmap or even the underlying code of their platform. And particularly in today's world where API integrations or LLM and AI-based automations are becoming more and more important for private equity funds, this is a very tough place for a software vendor to be in. Among the non-Salesforce vendors on this page, DealCloud and Navatar are probably the 2 of the most leading vendors in private equity. DealCloud in particular controls somewhere between 30 and 40% of the market alone. And although these are very large and successful companies, we view them as being increasingly uncompetitive in this market, largely because their platforms just have not kept up with modern technological developments. Some of the most common complaints that we hear from customers migrating to ListAlpha from them is that it just takes too much effort and time for the deal team to actually enter the records and keep the information up to date. As a result, particularly senior people over the time just stop using the platform and just don't see any value in actually logging in. Very frequently, we see deal teams that have actually started tracking their deals and their M&A advisors and relationships in an Excel spreadsheet or in an Airtable side by side with these legacy platforms because it's just simply more intuitive and easier to use. And that is a very strange place to be in, especially if you're the CTO of a private equity fund that is spending more than $100,000 or $200,000 on this platform. Now, before I move on to ListAlpha, I do have to say a disclaimer that I am a shareholder and the founder of the platform and thus am a little bit biased. But when developing our marketing material, I wanted to create content that feels a little bit more like a commercial due diligence report and less of salesy marketing, meaning that I wanted to be intellectually honest and be really thorough in actually analyzing not only our pros and cons, but also how we fit within the rest of the market, which is the reason why I wanted to create these market maps. And with that in mind, I can say that ListAlpha is one of the leading modern platforms for private equity, particularly when focusing on mid-market on the lower end of large cap. Over the past 12 months, we've onboarded more than 30 private equity funds. And fundamentally, the reason why customers are migrating to us from some of the legacy platforms that you've seen in this video are driven by 3 factors. 1, they want a modern and clean user interface that allows them to just simply get to the data that they're tracking quickly and easily. 2 is that they really like our auto-enrich functionality, which basically means that you can create any contact or deal or company on the platform without actually needing to add the information. You can just simply search, click on it, and all of the background information is enriched. And lastly, our powerful AI and LLM integrations which is becoming really, really important in this market as that technology accelerates. I also wanted to cover the difference between venture and growth and private equity. When building this company, I was actually really surprised by how different the workflows and the use cases, and as a result, the software vendors are between the PE and the VC side of the private markets. At a high level, you might think that there really isn't much difference between a venture capital investment and that of a PE or mid-market PE transaction. But in reality, the underlying workflow is actually very, very distinct. The reason for this is that at seed or Series A stage, there isn't just that much to due diligence. There's no such thing as commercial, there's no such thing as legal or financial due diligence. As a result, the shape of the pipeline and the kind of work and the kind of tracking that you do in your CRM platform are just very, very different. As a result, our view is that if you're going for venture or growth style approach, the best platform out there really is Affinity. There are some other options such as 4 Degrees, Atio, and Zaflow. However, it is important to say that Atio, although historically was very strong and was one of the earliest vendors in the space, have recently pivoted more towards generic industry CRM, meaning that they sell a CRM and customer management platform for startups, technology companies, and just other non-financial players. And thank you for watching this video. You can always learn about ListAlpha and our views on the private equity market by going to listalpha.com.